Okay, so it looks as though we are live here, coming from FreeSpirit Fabrics. Welcome, everybody. We are here for another week of Inspired By. I'm Sharon Thornton. I'm here on behalf of FreeSpirit Fabrics, and we have some very exciting guests this week. If you've been following us, you'll see that we are going to welcome Kaffe, Brandon Mabley, and Liza Lucy this week. And we are very excited that Kaffe and Brandon and Liza are going to be talking to us about shot cottons and how Kaffe, what his inspiration was to develop shot cottons and the shot cotton stripes. And they're going to tell us all about working with them and designing with them. And so this is very exciting to have them here again. We know that our viewers love to have Kaffe and Brandon and Liza and the collective as a whole whenever we can have them. So thank you to them. I know they're not on yet, but thank you. I'd like to talk about the fabrics that are behind me right now. These are 108-inch sateen quilt backs. These fabrics are going to be delivering to quilt stores in February of 2021. So if you see any gorgeous, these have a beautiful hand. As you know, FreeSpirit Fabrics, we have gorgeous sateen 108-inch, and now we have them in a broader selection of Kaffe and Brandon's designs. And I'd also like to remind you, Kaffe and Brandon will talk about the flannel grid that we use and that they use on their design wall and that many quilters use to design their quilts. So, Kaffe will be showing us that, and Liza will be showing us that later on, and as we move along. If you don't have this book, this would be a recommended book, the Shot and Stripe book, designed and made by Kaffe and Liza. It's a great book. I was reviewing it. I was doing a brush up yesterday. So fantastic book, a lot of inspiration, a lot of great ideas, fantastic quilts. And if you don't have the book, I'd recommend you get the book and read through it. You'll learn a lot. Like to remind everybody to come to the FreeSpirit website. We have many patterns. The patterns that Kaffe's going to be showing today in the quilts are on our website, freespiritfabrics.com. So please go there to view the patterns. And if you're interested in any of the fabrics that we are showing today, they're all on our website. So we encourage you to go to the website and take a look there. Reach out to your local quilt shop, ask them if they have the fabrics. Are they going to be carrying the fabrics? When are they getting the fabrics? Definitely reach out to them and ask them about the fabrics as well. So my top is a Zappy Dots top. It is in the pattern Vine, and it looks, as Brandon said, a little lacy. I didn't really think of it that way, but it does. So if you're interested in any of the designs that Kaffe and Brandon have that are over at Zappy Dots, we encourage you to go take a look there as well for some tops. I think that's all I need to say. Oh, I wanted to ask everybody to tell us where you're tuning in from, because we'd love to know what country you're tuning in from. Kaffe and Brandon are tuning in from England today. Liza's tuning in from Pennsylvania. I am in North Carolina. We're all in different time zones. So Liza and I are, noonish, and Kaffe and Brandon are 5-ish. Please tell us where you're tuning in from. We love to know. Give us thumbs up, give us hearts, tell us, ask us questions as we go. We will be looking. If a question is going to be answered soon, we may not interrupt. But if something hasn't been answered, we'll certainly ask, and we are happy to do that. So please send that along as well. So I am going to change the focus of my screen over to Kaffe. So hold on 1 second here. So Kaffe, I would like to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us again. We love to have you. So you're on Spotlight Video, so everybody can see you.
Great, good. Okay, so today I'm going to talk about our shot cottons and how they started life. And what happened was that we were asked by a charity that was working with India if we would go and help out a village of wonderful weavers that did beautiful hand weaving of very fine cotton, sari cotton. And we went out to this village and saw that they were beautiful weavers, but very, very primitive. And so they made this wonderful handmade fabric that has a few little glitches and things here and there, but I love that because it makes it as really by hand. But what was wonderful was that we did these stripes, and I just knitted up a great big swatch of different weights of stripes, you know, fine stripes and big bold stripes and so forth. And they wove the fabric to look just like my knitting, and it was wonderful. And we had a great success for years and years. Those stripes just went on and on and on, being very popular. But one day we realized that we had a lot of prints in our collection and a lot of complicated stripes, and we needed some relief. We needed some nice clear spaces to emphasize color, because color is what I'm all about. And so wanting to make real pools of color, I started looking at the stripes and realizing that they were beautiful shot feelings, because when we made the stripes, in order to get a blue colorway, you would put blue across lots of different colors, and you would get these amazing kind of iridescent qualities. And then if you wanted a red one, you put red across, and if you wanted pink and so forth. And so I started cutting little bits of stripe out and sending those to people, so that to weavers, and saying, we want a whole fabric of just this one yellow with a magenta background or whatever. And so we got these beautiful kind of mercurial, lovely stripes that when you change the fabric a little bit, you get these wonderful kind of blushes of the underground color. And so it's very, very exciting way of working with a solid color. But lately we've just done a new collection of shots, and I've made them really shot this time, so that there's a real shimmer to the fabrics. But also we've done stripes, and I've done these wonderful sort of dark colors. Very simple. What I like in a stripe now is something that you can cut in a small piece and it still reads and has panache. It has real punch. And so just making two color stripes, I find, is very, very exciting way of playing with stripes. We have some lighter and brighter ones, kind of tropical fruit colors, which is fun to play with as well. So you get two different sort of moods with these stripes. One of the things that I'm always looking as I travel around the world for different ideas. And I walked into a pop-up shop for artists, and on the wall were these framed pieces of color. And it was so exciting on this black wall, these framed, wonderful, wonderful bright colors. And so that's what inspired the quilt behind me, taking the shots and, you know, taking a wonderful mossy green and surrounding it with a deep lavender here, or really strong kind of deep kind of grease green with a hot orange kind of, you know, wonderful coral color. And then of course these wonderful hot yellow that pops up. And that is very, very exciting to play with a really sort of strong splash of color. So that was just taking the shot cottons and playing with those. When I came to working with the stripes, I did this quilt, which is just
the patterns on the FreeSpirit website.
And these patterns, by the way, for these quilts are on the FreeSpirit website. If you're going to make this wonderful kind of framed colors, I would make it a little bit longer. You can make it any size you want, but it's a little bit short. So
okay. I just want to jump in just to tell everybody that quilt is called Frame Boxes. The quilt, right, the quilt that Kaffe just showed us is called Frame Boxes, and that can be found, as Kaffe just said, on the FreeSpirit website. And he's recommending that you make it as big, you know, add more rows or reduce rows or whatever you'd like in terms of sizing. But it's a very achievable quilt. And that one's made in all the shot cotton solids.
So one of the things that is exciting is taking all the stripes and just doing this kind of log cabin of stripes radiating out. And I found that, wonderfully dramatic. We do things that are quite complicated most of the time and very Baroque. And once in a while, it's marvelous to do something that's really dramatic and simple. And I love the simplicity of this. By the way, we were talking about the backing on the square one. We've put Fury backing, so you can see the richness of that. And as we say, it's a beautiful, soft, silky weight.
Yes, it's beautiful. That's a 108-inch Sateen backing in Millefiore. How do you pronounce that properly, Kaffe? I always mispronounce it.
Millefiore.
Millefiore? Okay.
We talk about the binding.
And with this, you'll notice that I did an orange and kind of wonderful greasy green binding on that. So that is fun to do as something special. But on the back here, we've got my big peony.
Yes, that's beautiful.
I love big overblown flowers, as everyone knows.
It looks gorgeous on the back.
Very exciting to do these as a backing.
Yes, and as you and Brandon say, the party just continues to the back of the quilt.
Yeah. So here we've got one called Rosita, which Liza is going to be talking to you about. And she's going to show, we found this wonderful little, the Missonis, which are probably the greatest knitters in the world, went off to have a little collection in Target as a sample thing. They're very expensive knits. And so for them to go into Target was just a huge thing. They sold out, I think, in a matter of hours. But one of the things that they sold was a beautiful little book. This zigzag pattern is one of their signature patterns. And so it was very exciting to take that idea and do it with our shot stripes. And very, very exciting here the way Liza's done it. And she will be showing you how she cut that and also to demonstrate that. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was how you could do different ideas. This is a piece of knitting that I've just done, which is kind of based on a quilt that is one of my favorite quilts called the Bordered Diamonds. And here I'm just taking solids of colors and surrounding them by a solid color, kind of like that frame squares. But this would be a wonderful idea to do with the shot cottons. All the different colors and make these lovely combinations of contrasting colors around the border. So that's just the kind of ideas that are interesting. I mean, like, see, this is an ethnic little bag I brought in Peru. And that little woven bag with these wonderful bright colors and just stabs of bright colors inside of other bright colors, that's a wonderful idea. And those kind of things, those ideas are everywhere. You know, architecture and tiles and everything. As you walk around your world, you will see so many ideas that these wonderful shot cottons could be used for. Now, one of the things I'd like to show is how well they work with other fabrics. So here I've got my orange print.
Talk about the gray flannel sound wall.
Oh, and I'm working on this design wall, which is made of flannel. And you can see that I just can put up pieces of fabric and they stick to the flannel. And I'm able to just mock up an entire quilt. Can we see? Yes, we can.
Yeah, it looks great.
Good.
Kaffe, I love seeing you do this so quickly.
So this is, for years, I used to go to workshops and say to people, would you please bring a piece of fabric that's a neutral color? And they would turn up every time with toilet bowl white. And it was awful to work against. So I created this kind of nice, soft gray back cloth, which is a neutral color, and that just absorbs other colors. So as I'm just how prints go so well with the shot cottons, and how the color becomes so intense when it's isolated.
That already looks good.
And
That might be my next quilt.
so that's just a little demo. There, great. So that's just a kind of a simple idea I'm working on. And I'm going to put the whole thing, these little pieces will be against a soft gray, and then you get these kind of wonderful shots of strong childlike colors, which I really love. It's a very playful idea, but I use them all the time, these shot cottons and the stripes, in with my different prints, and they, as I say, give a wonderful pool of color, emphasize the color in the print in a way of kind of contrasting with it or blending with it. And I just find them very, very useful.
Can you talk about how you pulled the color palette together for Rosita? You've done different versions.
Well, what Liza's going to show you in a minute is this little wonderful notebook, and that had these quite contrasting colors in zigzag. And we tried to sort of take the shots, the stripes that we had at that time. We had another collection of stripes, and we tried to make that work in the same kind of mood. If you look in this book, Shots and Stripes, you will see the Rosita quilt, which I'm sure she's going to show you. But one of the things that we did, we were in an office in New York, and I was on a flying trip, and we had to design this very quickly to get it into the book. And I just sat there, and she brought me lovely diamonds of stripes, all cut and ready. And we just played with them and quickly designed this thing. I mean, it took us about 45 minutes in the middle of New York in a publisher's office to create that quilt. And so that's just the kind of things that crazy designers do. And it came off so well. It really turned out to be a beautiful quilt.
So Kaffe, when you describe that one, are you describing Rosita Zigzag? Is that how Rosita Zigzag was born?
That's right, the first Rosita zigzag.
Wow, wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing that you guys,
Yeah.
you threw that quilt together in 45 minutes.
Yes. Well, Liza had very nicely done. Oh, just a minute, we'll get it.
Here's Brandon, he snuck in. Brandon, we haven't seen you yet.
There's
Hey, Brandon.
in crime.
You look great.
Yeah, so this is a wonderful thing of just cutting diamonds, and Liza's going to show you, but when you cut these diamonds, they end up on diagonal, and then they just and we're never fussy about the way we make stripes meet. That's why we have great fun with stripes all the time, but we don't do designs where you have to carefully meet up every stripe with every stripe and go crazy. We don't like to go crazy. We like to have a very easy and fun life. So,
Right, a fun project, right? Don't stress out, just have fun and design and use the color, right?
yeah, these are angst-free projects. So the book of the Shots and Stripes, Liza will show you the original quilt, and I hope that you enjoy it.
We
And,
will. Thank you, Kate. I just
Oh.
wanted to let everybody know also that the Rosita zigzag that is behind Kate right now is actually in the Simply Modern magazine, and it's issue 22. So it's out there right now to, if you're interested in purchasing the magazine, you should be able to find it. And it's also on page 68 in that magazine. So if you are looking for that pattern, there it is.
and if you're looking at Daffy Dots, I'm wearing a Daffy Dot t-shirt.
I
here.
saw that peeking through, Kate. The Zappy Dots top. I saw it peeking through earlier. Looks great.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to turn you over to Liza now. Who will
Okay.
show you the makings of this wonderful quilt. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. All right, so I'd like to welcome Liza on. I'm going to put Liza on Spotlight Video. And let me see, Liza, can you hear us?
I can. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you. We can hear you, and it's awesome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. I have lipstick on for the first time since February. Great opportunity.
Right, great day to wear lipstick.
No other
So
opportunity.
you've told me multiple times how easy to make this Rosita zigzag is. And I have to say, I do admire this quilt quite much, because it's amazing to look at it. And I don't even know if viewers are aware that incorporates both the stripes and the solids in the quilt, which I find to be quite amazing as well. So Liza's here and she's going to show us exactly how easy this is.
Okay, so Kate spoke to you about the Target booklet that started this all. And this was like a $10 composition book that was sold to Target for the season that they worked with Missoni, which was really exciting. And so I took that and I cut as many shots of stripes as I could in these colors to meet Kate in New York at our publisher. And this is what came of it.
Wow.
So this is the original Rosita. It's named for Rosita Missoni, who is a great friend of Kate's. He worked with the Missonis in his early days in knits. And so it's named for her.
That's great information. I never knew that.
Now I'm going to show you something while I got the book open that is different from the one that you saw behind Kate. If you look at the rows across, they're uphill stripes and downhill stripes. You see how the uphill ones all match each other, but the downhill ones match each other and not. So that and that do not match.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not true in the quilt that I'm going to show you today. The one that Kate had behind him, they do match and they're more consistent. I happen to like this way better, but I do want people to know that they have the option of going either way. Okay? So, the important thing to know about stripes is that they run on the bolt. And so buying a fat quarter or a simple quarter is not a good purchase on this product. In this particular case, I think we recommended 1 yard and 1/8. And that's because you could get 12 diamonds. And that's important to be as matchy as possible. So I do try and get the fabric as straight as possible. It's impossible to make it perfect. I use Mary Ellen's Best Press, which is not a starch, it's more like a sizing, and it's invisible. And I do treat the fabric with that and iron it flat. So what I do, can you aim this here, honey? My daughter's helping me here today.
Oh yes, I forgot to introduce Alex. Liza's daughter is behind the camera.
So I cut as careful as I can along a stripe so that I can make them more or less identical. Don't get too fussy. If you'll notice that by the time I got to the other end of this 1 1/4 yards, they don't match. They're different. And it's not a problem. One of the great pleasures with working with Kaffe early on was him forcing me to give up on perfectionism, and it has been great fun ever since. So the one product that I do use, template I use, rotary cutting ruler a lot and recommend is this one. Can you see this?
Yeah.
This is called the Clearview Triangle. And I much prefer this one over a lot of the others on the market because there is a tip. Some of the others have no tip and they make no sense to me. I find this very handy. So in this case, we cut a 3.5-inch strip as well as you can. You lop off at an angle, the end, and then you place this at 3.5. That's why I like these, because the numbers are consistent with that point. So I put it at 3.5, like so, and I cut it off. And I move it down, 3.5, and so on. The other thing I have to cut in this, for this quilt, are 1.5-inch strips for the shot cottons. And again, I lop off the end. I put this at 3.5, which in this case does not go up to the point, but it's the measurement I need, and cut, and so on. Now, one of the wonderful things about the shot stripes, is there's no right side and wrong side. If you did this pattern with a printed fabric, you'd have to cut the uphill ones like this and the downhill ones like this, because you can't do this. Or in this case, I always have to do this a few times to get it. There we go. Yeah. So that way it matches. Mm-hmm. On the other one I showed you in the book, it did not match. I did them this way. Is that clear?
Yeah. So Liza, you're saying though, I mean, depending, so for this quilt, you want them to match, but the other one, it didn't.
The one in the book, I did it this way.
Right.
The one that was behind Kaffe is a little more matchy, and it is, there we go.
There you go. You got it.
Okay.
Right.
And really, this is never going to be perfect. It's going to be good enough.
Right.
So when you go to sew these, you're going to have, in some cases, you're going to have stripe to sew. You do this in long columns. In other cases, it's going to be stripe to solid. You just follow the formula. What you don't have is a seam that works this way. See how this matches here and here? Uh-huh. It won't work when you go to sew it. This is one of the reasons I like these points, because some people call them dog ears, but they stick out almost exactly a 1/4 inch. Right. Got that?
Yep.
So I'll line that up like so. And what's going to happen while my sewing machine is I go to sew, my needle's going to hit right there when I start the seam.
Right.
Right where those two form a V.
Right.
Okay, so over to my machine. Want to come around behind me, honey? Okay. So I have a 1/4 inch foot on my machine, and you'll see that the needle is going to hit right where those match. And it's going to come out right where these two.
I like your stiletto.
It's better than my fingers, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's better than sewing up your fingers.
Exactly right. All right. Yeah, it didn't come out exactly perfectly, but pretty good. Why is this stuck? I don't know. And so when it opens up, you'll see it's a straight line here.
Right, it's perfect.
So you're going to do column of this one, uphill ones. You're going to do columns of downhill ones. And then you're going to sew the columns together. And so you match up the point here. You crisscross here, and see how the dog ears crisscross each other?
Uh-huh.
So it helps you even feel where the seams go, and here and right here. And then I can sew this, but it would just take time. It's again a 1/4 inch all the way down, and it will be fine. So any questions from anybody watching? Because I probably did this way too fast.
I don't see. Everyone's saying love this, good visual cutting and matching. Oh, Bertie Cade says finished is better than perfect. I agree with that.
Absolutely. Perfection is the enemy of the done. Oh,
Exactly.
Of course, this just unthreaded on me too. So it happens only when you're
yeah,
on video.
That's just the way, right?
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. Good. PJ Cartwright says good enough is okay. Yes, thank you, Liza. This is so cool. Love it. We have people watching from all over, which is awesome.
nice.
Yes,
Are any of them going to make this quilt?
That's a very good question. Who's going to make this quilt? Tell us if you're going to make this Rosita zigzag. So there was a question in here where somebody had asked which magazine I had mentioned it was in. It's in the Simply Modern magazine, and it's issue 22. Let me see.
It's produced by Quilt Mania.
Yes, I didn't mention that. Thank you.
Right.
Let me see. Liz Ree says, Kaffe told me that perfection was boring and overrated.
I agree. In fact, I'll issue a challenge to everyone. The first time I really gave up on perfection, I was making something called the hat box quilt, which is in passionate patchwork. And the first patch I made, there's something very wrong with it. Very, very, very wrong. And Kaffe said, oh, we're going to do this a different way. And I got out my seam ripper. He said, oh, leave it alone. Nobody will ever notice. And no one ever has.
Oh, really? And which one was this, Liza? Oh, that looks great.
Hat box in passionate patchwork. And I'll give you a hint. It has to do with stripes.
Oh. That
So,
looks great.
yeah. So you see, there it is. It's not perfect. It's good. It's good.
Right.
Yeah.
It's good enough. That's beautiful. You did a great job. So
Why, thanks.
hold that up again, because that's what I find so amazing about this is that the stripes are in it and the solid fabric with more stripes. And so,
Right.
they're all, sewn together in such a way that when you initially look at the quilt, you don't even notice, or I didn't, Liza, for the longest time until you told me. You're like, Sharon, there's solids in there too.
Well, to be honest with you, when we first designed it, those were kind of an afterthought. We thought it was going to be all stripes. But then when we noticed the Missoni notebook, there were big sort of gaps. And we thought, okay, that needs to be the shots.
Liza, could you talk about the weight? Because often there's different comments on weight, why we've chosen the weight that it is.
So, we get some people who think that this is just not heavy enough. And we're pretty fond of this weight. We did try it in a coarser weave, and we really didn't like it. We like this, the way this behaves. It's also true of our printed fabrics. We print on a finer base cotton than many other designers. We like the suppleness. We like that you can hand quilt. We like that you can applique. We like this lighter fabric. It's not a lower quality. In fact, the threads are more densely woven together. It just happens to feel lighter and much to our liking.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, when we started 30 some years ago, even lighter fabric was in vogue. The Liberty lawn, for example, for patchwork.
If some people are new to these fabrics, Shots and Cotton is actually a perfect book because, as Kaffe describes it, it's like looking at the trees without the leaves. So you're looking at the basic structure of a quilt, but the color injection is there through the shot cottons and stripes that are still available through FreeSpirit. We originated the fabrics right at the very beginning of our patchwork career, and we're still keeping them in the range, renewing the colors, and we're hopefully bringing out more. These new stripes that Kaffe showed you at the very beginning are wider stripes, and so we're going to be bringing out some really dynamic projects using those.
There's actually a pretty funny story for how it all began. When Kaffe and I started to work together on his first trip over here to explore patchwork, he threw the book of these stripes that he and Brandon.
We've lost the volume, Liza.
Can you hear me?
Liza, we lost your volume.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, you're back.
Okay, so when Kaffe and I started to work together to do patchwork, to do our first book, Kaffe flew over here to my house in Pennsylvania, and as an afterthought, through the swatch book that he and Brandon had developed in India, for no reason other than to just show me, hey, look what we just did. And I looked at them and I thought, I think you can make patchwork with stripes. We thought, okay, well, we'll give that a try. And we then got our friends Ken Bridgewater at Westminster and Stephen Sheard at Rowan to start a fabric company, and the stripes were how it started. And it was
And one of the first designers that we asked to play with the stripes was Karen Stone, who produced the most magical arrangement. And that really said to Kaffe, this is something that I want to explore more, and took us down the route of then designing furnishing fabrics. Not
right.
furnishing.
At the time, the queen of striped fabrics back then was Roberta Horton. And she got a batch from the first weave batch that we had woven, and took off like lightning with it as well. So it's nice memories, really nice memories.
So if I can give any of you a design tip, one, you have to have a large enough stash and to have a color story, for instance, this dark quilt, and then you get to throw in a little bit of chili sauce, this hot red, but also having this gray flannel wall is an absolute necessity. We don't actually work anything out on a piece of paper. We literally cut and start placing the fabric up on the design wall, stand back, and then let it speak to us. So if any of you are fortunate to come to one of our workshops, that's what you'll experience. It's bypassing the brain and letting the visual speak to you by just doing it.
That's a great tip, Brandon. Thank you. Liza's putting, I don't know if everyone can see it. Liza, you're going to have to talk for everybody to see you.
Oh, okay. Well, if you can't see me without talking.
Yeah, we can see you now.
It is.
But you can see they're just packing it right up there. If you have something really heavy, this is put on insulation board, and so I can pin into it with very little effort. When it's something heavy, but lightweight pieces like patches, they just stick.
Yes, awesome. It's a great way to, start laying out your quilt and moving pieces around if you decide you don't like their placement before you start sewing.
Absolutely. Also, by having a design wall like this, you can place enough up there, and then you can start eliminating once you've got enough of a story. If you stick about 3 or 4 pieces up there and then start taking stuff down, it's like doing a 2-step dance. You've got to leave it all up there, and then you start coming across unexpected little happenings that give it personality.
Exactly.
Karen, you had some bundles of fabrics to show.
Yes, I do. So let me show everybody. So I've got some stripe. Here's some of the shot, excuse me, the shot stripes.
Right.
Can you see them pretty well, I hope?
We can.
Good. So here are some of the shot stripes, and we've seen these in multiple quilts that Liza has shown and Kaffe was showing as well in the one behind Brandon. Here are the shot cotton solids. And what I think is so amazing about the story, which I mentioned to Kaffe and Brandon prior to coming on, is that they started with the stripes, and Liza's mentioned it too, and then they went into the solids. So I think that that's pretty amazing that you started that way. Then I just like to also, I know that Liza's talked about the book and Kaffe has as well, and Brandon, here's the book. You don't have the book, it's a great book. There's a lot of information in there. There's a lot of inspiration. I think it's very fascinating to see how Kaffe shows. It's amazing to see, these multiple times that we've been lucky enough to have Kaffe and Brandon on, to see where Kaffe derives his inspiration from. And, for him to show the knitting and how the knitting comes over into the fabric so often, it's truly amazing. And then for him to show that little bag and, Brandon, you have to talk if they're going to see you.
Oh, right. Okay. So this is a little bag that we got from Guatemala from a trip there. We asked to go to Guatemala to work with their charity.
Mhm.
And this is one of our little market purchases. And this design has led into this little high contrast bag has led into a lot of designs. One of the more famous designs Liza and Kaffe are well known for doing is the bordered diamonds quilt. And this is Kaffe working it into a knit swatch. Again, just the way that we'll design is pick up the yarn, start designing on the needles, and then decide what kind of shape it's going to go into afterwards. And those who are more familiar with our books would know that this has been done over and over and over. And even in our latest book, Quilts in Burano, we did a deep palette of purples using this structure, bordered diamonds.
Mhm.
I hope that some people will try and do Rosita in the palette of their own choosing, not just to do it as the formula that we put together. The big hint I will give you is choose mostly all the darks or mostly all the lights, and then throw some of the opposites in. So if you're starting as the quilt behind Brandon, you'll notice I use all the dark stripes, but an occasional shot cotton is a little bit brighter. And so try and keep the tones close.
What I think is essential with this palette is how this hot red was thrown in with these very moody, broody colors. And this hot red just adds a little bit of lipstick. It just gives it a little pickup, and it's absolutely perfect. But Liza, can you talk a little bit about how you did the finish off, which I think is so unique to this palette, with the border, the edging?
Honestly, Brandon, I did it the same way as the booklet. I ran the colors across horizontally.
And what it does, it just allows the design to keep on flowing out rather than just adding a solid color. So it's like adding a big curb.
Mhm.
It also functions to stabilize the quilt because the diamonds will have a bias edge occasionally. And by putting a straight edge against it, it stabilizes it. So when you go to quilt it, it's not going to have a weighty border.
Right. That's ingenious.
Oh, why thank you. That's why they
Liza-
pay the big bucks, Sharon.
Right. Right. So
on the-
one question, Liza, that I have for you in regard to Rosita Zigzag is when you were designing that, I mean, did you kind of know the colors? Like, I mean, you just gave us a suggestion on how to choose the colors. I mean, were you changing that as you were going? The one that's behind Brandon, that is.
Behind Brandon, honestly, we had just gotten the stripes in. It was 3 weeks before market. I was in a rush. And so I took all the darks and then chose as many of the shots as I could that I felt were going to work with it. But I did put it on a design wall before I sewed because getting the sequence right was really important. Otherwise, I would have had like all the reds up here or all the blues down here by mistake. So I cut and cut and cut and cut. I cut the entire palette out first, and then I arranged.
Yeah, no, that's
Faster than you think.
What's great to see the version in the Shots and Stripes book is it's a more of an autumnal palette for those who want something for their log cabin or to go with their wooden floors or their beautiful oak four-poster bed. That will be a beautiful kind of palette. But for somebody who wants something more smoky and dark and rich or
Right.
masculine,
Right.
then this is
And if you notice, see what I said earlier, but may make more sense now, how the uphills match each other across and the downhills match each other, but they don't meet together.
yes.
You see it now?
also,
Mhm.
Liza, the sequence of stripes that are put together aren't predictable. You don't have like 4 and 4 and 4. There's a lovely randomness to it too.
Right.
Well, this has been awesome. So I would like to thank Brandon and Kaffe and Liza for joining us this week. We always love having you. So thank you for coming on and joining us here at FreeSpirit and explaining, talking through the shot cotton solids and the shot cotton stripes and showing the many different ways. I mean, Kaffe showed us a quilt that was made just using the shot cotton solids, just using the shot cotton stripes. I think I just misspoke. And then the one that's behind Brandon that is the Rosita zigzag that is using the solids and the stripes that Liza showed us how to develop. So, I mean, we're showing all the combinations. Brandon, what did you want to?
Yeah, could I also say to the people, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. Kaffe will actually be giving an online talk with his niece, Erin Lee Gaffel, who's an established writer, teacher, author, on Saturday, and there's more information about that through social media. So if any of you want to join in for that, that's going to be a talk about creativity and being inspired and getting motivated.
And this book is the book that they just did together.
Yeah, and that's based around an exhibition that Kaffe and Aaron will be having at the Monterey Art Museum next May. That will run until October. And also Kaffe and I will be back doing a FreeSpirit Live on January 2nd to welcome in the new year. So please come back and join us then.
Me too.
Yes, Liza will be with us too. So yes.
We can't be doing without our Liza.
Miss you guys a lot.
I know, it's awesome. It's so great that we have Zoom and we can all at least connect this way with one another. So thank you, Brandon and Kaffe, and thank you, Liza. And actually, before we go off, I just want to, we have 3 giveaways this week. We are giving away shot cotton solids and shot cotton stripes, of course, because this is what we focused on today to tell you all about. So the question is, can you tell us the definition of a shot cotton? Like, how is it created? And where do they come from? Where are they made? So if you know the answer to either of those questions, and Liza and Brandon, you can't tell anybody.
Okay.
Please tell us, let us know in the answers, and we will be selecting a winner. Brandon, I see you. I know that everybody else can't, but I can see you. He's trying to distract me. You're doing a good job. So anyways, we'd like to thank everybody. Please send us any questions. FreeSpirit, Nancy Jewell has been on, Lindsay Dryden's been on, Sarah's going to pick the winners. So we thank everybody who's answering a lot of the questions. And thank you, Liza. Thank you, Alex, for doing the filming behind the scenes. Do we get a little peek of Alex?
There I am.
Oh, there's Alex.
There I am. Hi.
Hey, Alex. So Alex is Liza's daughter. So thank you, Alex. We appreciate you. And thank you, Liza, Alex, Kaffe, and Brandon. And we will look forward to seeing you all back on January 2nd.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Join us on social media.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.